Moved wind, hand on tiger, a mantle of sun, steam of paradise, moon in a lake, silver back of clouds, of scales in waterfalls, insects in the coronation from stranger skies in colors, open mouth of the morning scream, naked skin, drawn lions encrusted of green seas, eternal gesture with the black skin, with the white skin of waterfalls and breeze, of drizzle, moved wind, hand on tiger, mantle of sun, steam of paradise, moon in a lake, silver back of clouds, of scales and waterfalls, open mouth, the morning scream, naked skin, drawn lion crested of green seas, illuminated outline, the share left of mirages of hearts, the spirits breathe, wrapped on the bridges of the freezes and the glows, in the shadow of the trees, open mouth of the scream in the morning, naked skin, drawn lion crested of green seas, bridges, spirits, and their conversions. Time of the world, resurrection, nirvana, of the verb that exists, and I don't know what it's called, to rest flowing, while the glacial cosmos for every minute that passes, until I get tired to scream and run terrified by the heavenly cloisters, from the streets and the office and the pedestrian paths and the beaches and the prisons and the shopping centers and the monuments that impact in the tides from the sky every morning. My thoughts, they scratch me. Never by me to infinity I'm gonna think about them, because I saw the dying time. It was mental, flaming against the lapse of time on your tattoo back, in conjunction in a second of the universe, in those cities, while the corpse they play at the piano with their green skins over the top of the willows. I feel contaminated by the time of the war, resurrection, nirvana, of the verb that exists, and I don't know what is called. To rest flowing while the glacial cosmos for every minute that passes, until I get tired to scream and run terrified by the heavenly cloisters from the graves that impact the tides from heaven every morning. I'm going to sit down someday with my legs crossed like herbs turned, to feel myself blessed by the eternity of a time, spinning in stars like birds in the reflection from the harp of a river in the new day on the pavement. Ah, at that moment I will be received, and I'm going to be dismissed to those illuminated years that are not measured in lives. I will no longer want my voice or my silence. I'm going to live on the ropes of the lines from the horizon, like a soul buried in laughter of the beginnings and awakenings.
人間の生命というものは不思議なもんで、自分のためだけに生きて自分のためだけに死ぬというほど人間は強くないんです。というのは人間は何か理想なり、何かのためということを考えてるんで、生きるのも自分のためだけに生きることにはすぐ飽きてしまう。すると死ぬのも何かのためということが必ず出てくる。それが昔言われた大義というものです。そして大義のために死ぬということが人間の最も華々しい、あるいは英雄的な、あるいは立派な死に方だというふうに考えられている。しかし今は大義がない。これは民主主義の政治形態というものは大義なんてものいらない政治形態ですから当然なんですが、それでも心の中に自分を超える価値が認められなければ、生きていることすら無意味になるというような心理状態がないわけではない。
Death of my heart converted tiger, wild lightning beyond fear to die with a senseless life. The impulse of power of a converted tiger, wild beauty, blood machine with immaculate instincts, unstoppable about life. The sacrifice its paradise into a converted tiger. Death of my heart, fear of dying senseless, wild lightning, the sacrifice of paradise about life. To live the urge of the power of a converted tiger. My heartbeat wrapped the supernatural neon bright jungles and dimensions on my chest of something new, never before filtered, never before lived. Converted tiger, radiance of the perfect blood. The universe roars and beats as it moves in the twilight muscles. Illumination, sacrifice, paradise, lifetime, impulse, power. Converted tiger, wrapped heartbeat, supernatural jungles, bright dimensions, my chest, new sense, does it move in the twilight muscles?
Into a converted tiger. Be mine the sacred solar empire, sacred love, immortal. And one like this, receive sacred depleted, don't start over. Sacred animal, new day, imperial breath, of sacred skies, of sacred terraces, and the broken soul, in cold, curved bones. Sacred spirit screaming like hungry fields on the sacred, immortal. To remind the sacred solar empire, sacred love, immortal sacred the excess of leaksing, of look hatching of music and filaments of other lives on the threshold. Sacred body, sacred death, sacred temple in the wind. The broken soul into cold, cold bones. Sacred spirit screaming like hungry fields. Over the sacred, immortal. Dearly sacred oxygen. The springs is sacred, the spring is sacred clouds. Where I still live by the wide and closed fields. And one like that receive sacred depleted, don't start over. Of sacred skies, of sacred terraces, on the broken soul and cold, cold bones. Sacred spirit screaming like hungry fields on the sacred, immortal. Join levitated to walk, breathe in the sacred and the sentimental expression by the fragments of fractal dragonflies with open wings, flying in sacrament with air, and I open myself so quiet into the sacred in everything. At last.
TV on, gravitating rooms, sometimes where virtually the soul awakens and look at us and it comes out. That feeling of the beyond in the body, from the elastic crack, abnormal eyelids, between that noise in dim light, like an audible whisper, that almost imperceptible, it feels like watching you. In the silence of those rooms, to the last hours of calm, were rapid between the sheets, lying in the bed, abstracted. I sat next to her on the bed, in front of the window, which didn't exist, and although I could see her naked, I was fascinated with her other face and her other skin, like a faint whisper, like a virtual aura, in a mystical warm fatigue and an essential sweet repose that brought her to me and still bring her to me. Neon night on her cheeks, advertisements, theatrical posters, canopies in deserts, rivers and nectars on her large thighs as streets. Where like a dog in heat I ran, I got lost in turmoil, in the maelstrom, and in the silence. From his room with the TV in a whisper, in the opening on the other side, inside even my corneas, against the LED screen, and against their domestic virtual paths. Neon night on her cheeks, advertisements, theatrical posters, canopies in deserts, rivers and nectars on her large thighs as streets, and her other skin, the one like a soft whisper, like a virtual aura, in a mystical warm fatigue and an essential sweet repose. They brought her to me. They still bring her. In the silence of gravitating rooms, sometimes where virtually the soul leaves us. Rain monitor tuning, who remains in his own body when she is on the run, in the umbilical cord of a cable. TV on, early morning, crystal angel shining rapid to the hermetic voices from the breakers of souls, while rapid between the sheets, lying abstracted. I sat next to her on the bed, in front of a window that didn't exist, in turmoil, in the maelstrom, and in the silence of her room, with the TV in a whisper, and in the opening on the other side, from inside to my corneas, against the whispers, against their domestics' virtual paths. Deformed cannibal memory from showcases into pictures, imagination of oblivion when I was young to feel empowered, I perfectly declared, and remains free, my ripped off face, whole, closed and unopened, untouchable over the water and the sky, in the shadow of the reflection, the evocation of my anima, of my spirit, made into a soul, of another me, certainly of the same me, sudden made up, perfumed in a memory, in a film of oblivion illuminated, whole, transmuted, when I was young and the strength of all things in my body. And sometimes I remember my open body, and to die calm, and to die awake, savor the faded, and to feel hope, scented and make up in the streets, dressed and masturbated. I remember sometimes when I was young, fashion music that I still feel after atrocities from my deformed cannibal memory. Redemption. God was power. God was peace. God was the calm of a work of art, hysterical and purple. Ah, that feast that was my soul, and the divinity of the city, a feathered diva dragged in the crowd, in halos of virtualities transformed, deformed cannibal memory from showcases into pictures, imagination of oblivion when I was young to feel empowered, glared perfectly, remains free, my face made into a husk.
lying under the sky, falling on my face. Hypnos vision, god of sleep. Forged blade of a sword able to open into the universe, and thus reveal the real way of what bleeds.
That's how I met the blade, making furrows in my soul, between reeds and lotuses, against the divine wind of a sacred gust. Rosy aurora, mighty, cleaves distance, with which to learn landscapes of his form in the visions of the auras. Dream is reaping of my soul and his blood in the nascent life from heaven, in the new sacred allegory falling on my face. Dream is the shape, the void, the death, the distance. The blade making furrows in my soul, between reeds and lotuses, against the divine wind of a sacred gust. Dream is the shape, the void, the death, the distance, lying under the sky, fallen on my face. Hypnos vision, god of sleep, a forged blade of a sword able to open into the universe, and thus reveal the real way of what bleeds. The blade is the friction of your palm tearing the spiritual masks of the flowery valleys in paradise of my soul. There I bled wounded, like the trophy of a battle, by the thorns of my dreams. Dream is the shape, the void, death, the distance, lying against the sky, falling on my face. Hypnos vision, god of sleep, a forged blade of a sword, able to open into the universe, and thus reveal the real way
of what bleeds.
That death is psychologically just as important as birth, and like it, it's an integral part of life. But surely it can't be like birth if it's an end, can it?
Yes, if it's an end. And there we are not quite certain about this end. Because, you know, there are these peculiar faculties of the psyche, that it isn't entirely confined to space and time. You can have dreams or visions of the future. You can see round corners and such things. Only ignorance deny these facts. It's quite evident that they do exist and have existed always. Now these facts show that the psyche, in part at least, is not dependent upon these confinements. And then what? When the psyche is not under that obligation to live in time and space alone, and obviously it doesn't, then to that extent the psyche is not submitted to those laws. And that means a practical continuation of life, of a sort of psychical existence beyond time and space.
The structure of the day is renewed and reborn, and open his arms to snatch souls to the world, and to others offer warm breath. Fantastic anima where everything fits in itself. The structure of the day is renewed and reborn, turned a mask in deity in the form cramped. At times I see heavily fields or shit bridges, sometimes in the disaster of a universal, unmeasurable collision. However, the structure of the day is renewed and reborn into underworlds of shadows and abysmal landscapes, filthy, brooding in the maelstrom of souls. The street, the path of hiding glows in the bodies, in the vertigo and the coloration of the fantasies between corners, horns and the scream of the streets, in the heat and in the cold grey hates and the imminent collapse for what you love and the same time you hate of the street. That miserable street full of animals and microscopic filth on the benches of the squares and the solitudes who know each other and consume themselves in mass communion of your molten body against perversion of misery. For your passion and your madness and your fear for that thing you call street, and your hands as a symbol, and your hands like wings, in the demolished buildings, and in the big entrance of the street, and his empty hope, and the reason for everything, the path of hiding glows in the sewers, in the relics of the crush of coffins and altars, in imagination after corners and horns and the screaming of the streets, in the heat and in the cold of grey heights and the impending collapse, for what you love and at the same time you hate of the street, that miserable street full of animals and microscopic filth on the benches of the squares, and the solitudes who know each other and consume themselves, and in the mass communion of your molten body against the perversion of a misery, of your passion and your madness, and your fear for that, what do you call the street? Filthy, thoughtful in the maelstrom, the structure of the day is renewed and reborn, and open his arms to snatch souls to the world, and to others offer warm breath to fantastic anima where everything fits.
the sea's heart deep forward by the possessed, with the open palms of a dead god, born of the breeze in the depth of a building, where crowned is the possessed, between moans of a ritual, and spiritisms, meditations and bonfires, sunsets of bonfires, dawns of bonfires, against crooked faces the flame itself of the ancestral voice, in man's spirit, the spirit the world reborn like a black shadow, the world like a seed, by the spirit that is buried, and the faces of children on your back like amoebas, mutating, busting like bubbles against the dead god of the wind, against your body, at the funeral of the buildings where the spirit will be born again. And spiritisms, meditations and sunsets of bonfires, dawns of bonfires, against the crooked faces, the flame itself of the ancestral voice, the spirit names you, sitting in the shade, waiting for your face, slinging in the sunsets, on open legs, as goddesses of women, against the arrow in the arch of the horizon, pointing to the deformity of something similar to an angel in the statues and the aerials, and the faces of children on your back like amoebas mutating, busting like bubbles against the dead god of the wind, against your body at the funeral of the buildings where again will be born the spirit. Wave and circle over the whole earth, reverse iris over the voices all, in the heart of the sea, deep forward by the possessed, with the open palms of the dead god of the breeze, born in the depth of a building. Where crowned is the possessed, between moans of a ritual.
¿Qué es para usted la vida, Borges?
Diré que es una interesante aventura y que estamos comprometidos en esa aventura.
Y por contraste...
Y que moriremos emprendiendo esa aventura.